Nitrogen fixing plants. Leguminous plants such as soya bean, peas, beans, etc. have root nodules that host nitrogen fixing rhizobium bacteria. These bacteria take nitrogen from the air and convert it into a form that can be used by the plant. In exchange, they receive nutrients from the plant for their own survival. It's a perfect example of plant organism symbiotic relationship. Root nodules can be perennial, as in alfalfa and clover, or they can be annual, as in beans and peanuts. In annual plants, nitrogen fixing bacteria stop fixing nitrogen as soon as the plants start making seeds. In perennial plants, on the other hand, the bacteria fix nitrogen continuously. In return, plants provide rhizobium bacteria with photosynthesis as an energy source. Herbaceous legumes and grasses that fix nitrogen are called green manure or living manure. These plants constantly replenish nutrients in topsoil as well as enhance soil porosity, control weed growth, and prevent soil erosion. When these plants are chopped and dropped over the topsoil, their nitrogen fixing root nodules die, thereby releasing their nutrients into the surrounding soil. Clover and alfalfa are good example of green manure. Crop rotation. Crop rotation involves growing different families crops in rotation in same area in sequence over several years. Crop rotation is different from intercropping. Intercropping involves growing different crops in a single season, whereas in crop rotation, different types of crops are grown in a sequence of growing season rather than in a single season. Advantages of crop rotation includes it helps improve soil fertility and also helps in limiting soil erosion. Crop rotation reduces pressure from weeds, pests, and diseases. It also helps in distribution of workload over time, and crop rotation helps reduce susceptibility to extreme weather events. Crop rotation and cereals. Here are a few examples of how cereal crops can be rotated on a 5-year cycle. In year one, we may begin by having a wheat to barley to sugar beet to wheat to canola rotation. The rotation can be changed to corn to beans to wheat to canola to barley in second year. Presence of dry bean gives the opportunity to soil to replenish its nutrients and interrupts the life cycle of plant-specific pathogen. Similarly, we can continue to rotate crops differently and add new crops into rotation. Crop rotation in a vegetable garden. When the same vegetable is planted in same place every year, it takes up the same nutrients from the soil, which results in nutrient depletion in soil. Pathogens such as bacteria, virus, fungi, etc., that feeds on same vegetable plant gets opportunity to propagate, and proliferate as they are guaranteed their food source. This results in low productivity and loss of yield. Rotating the location of vegetable deprives these pathogens of their food and help in controlling their population. Crop rotation as per nutrient demand. Legumes such as peas and beans help fix nitrogen and improve soil nutrients. It's a good idea to include them in the cycle of rotation so as to replenish soil nutrients that get depleted by other plants that take up a lot of nutrient from soil, such as tomatoes. It is also a good idea to include plants with deeper roots so that they can access nutrients located deeper in the soil, for example, carrots. In this example, there are three garden beds. In the first year, tomatoes are planted in first garden bed. In the second year, in second garden bed. And in the third year, in third garden bed. This sequence is repeated in the fourth and following years. This way, we can maintain a balance between growing heavy giver and heavy feeder plants on a given soil patch and keep the soil rich in nutrients. Intercropping. Intercropping is cultivation of two or more crops simultaneously on the same field. For example, here in this picture, coffee and tomatoes, they are growing in the same field. Intercropping is different from crop rotation and is more suited to growing large quantities of grains, vegetable, and legume crops. Benefits of intercropping include it helps enhance diversity and sustainability of land, makes efficient use of available nutrients by all crops. It also helps increase net income. Symbiotic plants, they share resources and nutrients in intercropping. It also helps in weed and pest control and improves microclimate of the field. Types of intercropping. First type of intercropping is called mixed intercropping, where two or more crops are grown together mixed in a field. In this picture, you see mixed intercropping of oat and rye crop. Crops are not planted in any well-defined patterns. Efficient use of all the available spaces in mixed intercropping, but it's difficult to harvest crop separately in mixed intercropping. Row or strip intercropping. Crops are grown in alternate row or are grown in between rows of tree. In this picture, you can see onion and hairy veg. They are grown in alternate rows. Row or strip intercropping can also intercrop rows with solar photovoltaic panels, also called agrivoltaics. It's easy to harvest the crops separately, and row and or strip intercropping is suitable for grains and vegetable crops. Third type of intercropping is called temporal intercropping. It involves sowing fast-growing crops with slow-growing crops at the same time. Here is an example of temporal intercropping of wheat and maize. In temporal intercropping, early maturing crop gets harvested first, and efficient use of available land. Temporal intercropping avoids crop competing for available resources. Fourth intercropping is called relay intercropping. In relay intercropping, second crop is sown after the first crop has reached its reproductive stage. In this picture, maize has reached its reproductive stage, whereas soybean is start to grow. Harvesting of first crop creates space for the second crop, and both the crops can be harvested separately. Some examples of intercropping. Mixed intercropping examples are cotton with legume, cassava with bananas, cowpeas, pigeon peas, and green grams. Row or strip intercropping examples are maize with beans, tomatoes with onions, etc. Temporal intercropping examples are oilseed rape and maize, potato and maize, etc. Relay intercropping examples are maize and soybean, maize and sweet potato, etc. Alley cropping. Alley cropping is when space or alleyways between rows of trees or shrubs is planted with companion crops. Rows of trees could be nut tree, fruit tree, or timber tree. The crops, they could be annual or perennial crops. Benefits of alley cropping includes it helps in income diversification and also helps in prevention of soil erosion and as windbreaker. Alley cropping also improves and increase biodiversity, and the marginal lands gets also improved in alley cropping. Microclimates are created in alley cropping for crops. Some examples of alley cropping. In this picture, corn crop is between rows of walnut trees. Another example of alley cropping is cotton crop between rows of pine trees. Companion planting. Companion planting involves planting two or more different crops close to each other, and they benefit each other, results in increased productivity. Companion plants provide biodiversity and create resilient ecosystem. Together, they resist pest or adverse weather conditions effectively. Example of companion planting is ancient three sisters, corn, beans, and squash. These are called three sisters by natives of America because corn, bean, and squash, they help each other out. Bean fixes nitrogen and provide nitrogen to soil through its root. Corn provides support for bean climber. Squash provides ground cover, reducing soil erosion and preventing moisture loss. Some examples: companion planting of carrot and onion in this picture, companion planting of tomatoes, chives, and calendula in this picture. These plants are such good buddies because they act as repellent of for each other's pests and use different nutrients from the soil. Common pairing benefits of companion plants: when melon and marigold grow as companion plants, marigold control nematodes in the roots of melon. Nasturtium repels cucumber beetles when cucumber and nasturtium grow as a companion plant. Tomato and cabbage as companion plant. Here, tomato repels moth larvae that chew on cabbage leaves. Soybean and corn as companion plant. Soybean fixes nitrogen and also repels Japanese beetle of corn.